specifically welcome to Catholic Butterflies, where I strive to talk about the gems that I've received in the Catholic faith. I mean, there's gems, but of course going along with the theme of like us being butterflies in this beautiful garden that is the Catholic Church, I like to also say the flowers I found in the Catholic faith. But one such flower that I found, it's been veiling, so that's what I'm going to talk about today, and I'm so excited because I've actually already talked about this with a couple of women in my life, and yeah, I've loved the conversations I've had with them. So I just hope to just share my personal journey with veiling, why I personally do it, and yeah, and if you have any questions or just like any thoughts, feel free to comment down below, and I'd love to also hear like your reasons for veiling, because yeah, I kind of just have my own personal ones, but I'd love to learn more on why other people like to veil. But with that, I shall get into it. So, I would say the first reason that I started veiling, or at least became interested in veiling, was due to seeing so many images of Mary, or at least looking at them very closely. Of course, when looking at like all of these images of Mary, all these Marian statues, something that really intrigued me was how Mary was always depicted in a veil. Now granted, this of course makes a lot of sense because like during her time period that just would have been the custom for women to wear veils. However, despite that though, I was still just very intrigued about it, and it surprisingly led me to become interested in veiling myself as just like a reminder that I'm her daughter, and then yeah, that I should strive to emulate her in every way possible. So I'd say like that was kind of the first reason why I got interested in veiling. Second thing I'll say too, and I think this is natural for a lot of women who started veiling, is that I just had a lot of women around me who were veiling in one way or another. I just had friends who love the Latin Mass who veil all the time, whether or not they're at a Latin Mass or at a Novus Ordo. Another thing, which kind of related to the Mary one, is during college I was exposed to a lot of religious orders, particularly a lot of sisters, and they have just been the most beautiful women I've ever seen. Like their spirits are just so beautiful and just shines through, and oh, it's just so beautiful. And so I think one little small way I've been trying to do so is through veiling. I think it's just a way that, like the nuns, I can conceal my beauty during Mass in order to show humility and in order to show how I strive to submit to the will of God. So yeah, but we'll kind of get into some of those like deeper ideas later. Yeah, and I think a third reason why I started veiling was just due to just embracing more deeply my identity as a daughter. By being a daughter, by being a son of God, we are co-heirs to Christ. We are like little princes and little princesses, and just thinking about that, it just felt even more right for me to begin veiling. If you were to look at a lot of the princesses from earlier times, they often wore veils. And of course, like with veiling, the purpose is not to conceal something that is bad. It's not to conceal something that's bad, but rather it's to conceal something that's very, very beautiful. And you can, of course, more explicitly see this when you look at a wedding, for example. When a bride processes down the aisle with like her veil covering her face, the veil is not covering her because she's like horrible, because like her face is horrible and like that no one should see her face, but rather the veil covers her because she's so beautiful that her beauty deserves to be concealed and revealed only at the right time. And of course, you know, like when that moment comes when she's in front of her husband, then that's when they lift up the veil. And you know, of course, there's always just like the cute scene where like the husband's like, you're so beautiful. It kind of reminds me a lot of like when Eve was revealed to Adam, and Adam was just like, wow, you're bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, like like beautiful. Like God, in a very special and very beautiful way, he created women to exemplify his beauty. He granted their men are beautiful in their own way, but like women, we are so beautiful. We're probably like the most beautiful thing that God has ever created. I just remember I was at one talk and they were just like, maybe it was just a study, maybe this was like a general conversation, but it asked like a bunch of men, like, if you were to choose between a sunset or a woman, like, which one is like more beautiful? Which one would you choose? And a lot of the men, I think all of the men actually, like, said a woman, because women are just so uniquely beautiful and they just show in a very unique way the beauty of God. So with all that being said, of course in Mass, the center of the Mass, the reason why we go to Mass is for Jesus, right? And so during Mass, like, our intention should not be to draw a lot of attention to ourselves, but rather to conceal our beauty so that we can focus on the true source of beauty, which is Jesus himself. So like there's that aspect of it. And I think something really beautiful too is if you look at the structure of the Mass, or even like just, I guess maybe it's not the Mass, but like the structure of the church, the Holy of Holies, of course, like you can see this in the Old Testament, like the place that's like the holiest place in the church is the tabernacle. So that's where Jesus himself is. And when looking at like how the Mass is structured, during the majority of the Mass, Jesus himself is veiled. He's concealed, not because Jesus is bad, like if anything, he's the source of all goodness, right? And so yeah, so like what we see is that the reason why he is veiled is because he's so good. He's so good that yeah, he can only be revealed at certain times. And yeah, if you're just think about your day-to-day life, like this makes a lot of sense. Like a lot of the things that are worth the most amount of money in our society are often very highly protected, very veiled. If I was to like have like a gem, like this is of course random, no one would ever carry around like a big expensive gem with them, but like if I had something like a gem that was like really, really precious to me, worth like millions of dollars, like I wouldn't just carry it around, right? Like I would veil it and I would only reveal it to people that I felt were deserving of that beauty. Oh, which is even more just like, just blows your mind when you're thinking about like the beauty of Christ. Like what a privilege it is for us to be able to experience Jesus being revealed to us in such like an intimate and beautiful way in the Mass. But anywho, I digress. So yeah, so that's like a big reason why I veil. Kind of along those lines too, I find veiling very helpful because it also puts me in the mindset of being a bride to Christ, who's our bridegroom, who's our ultimate bridegroom. Like when you're just like in the line to communion and you have your veil on, it's just a lot easier for you to take on the disposition that you are about to encounter your bridegroom, Jesus Christ, and that he is the person that your heart, that your soul is made for. There's just something like, it just strikes me every time. Like when I'm walking there and I have my veil on, it's just like, I'm about to see Jesus. I'm about to see this fully divine, fully human person through the Eucharist who my heart was meant for. If you think about a wedding, like you're walking down the aisle with your veil because you're about to become one with your husband, you know. In the same way in communion, you're walking down the aisle to become one with Jesus, and that's just so beautiful. That's just so beautiful. Yeah, and so I guess like further connecting to like my earlier points, I think what's really beautiful about it as well is like when I put on my veil, like I also just feel like a princess. And I know that that's so superficial, but like I think there's also just something very true and very profound about that as well, of like we are daughters of Christ. We are daughters of Christ. We're so beautiful. We're so beautiful that like we should veil our beauty so that Jesus can be the center of the Mass. We should veil that. And I think there's also just something so beautiful too about you willingly veiling your beauty so that Jesus can have all the attention. Yeah, like that's just such an act of love. It's such an act of submission. It's such yeah, it's just such a beautiful, it's such a beautiful act. I think it's very humbling. And I'll also say too that there are veils that are very beautiful, right? So I'm not even gonna lie, my veils are very beautiful. I have this veil, which I wear on Sundays, just because Sunday is like a celebratory day. So this is the one I wear on Sunday, and then like during daily mass, like I wear like this pink one. And so like I, of course, like when talking about like attention and attention drawing, like what I don't want though is like for me to buy a veil that has like a bunch of sequins on it and to like totally distract people. I think it is okay for a veil to be beautiful. I think in a very beautiful way it reveals your daughterhood, and women themselves, like I had mentioned earlier, like they just in a very unique, beautiful way reveal beauty. And yeah, but however, if your heart is wearing a veil so that you can be seen, then that's when veiling is not good and can actually lead you to sin. I think a lot of it just depends on like the disposition of your heart. Because at least for me with like veiling, like this helps me to better connect with Jesus during the time of communion. It helps me to best get in this disposition that I'm a daughter of God and that I'm his bride. However though, like if veiling was leading me to the sin of vanity through like wanting other people to look at me, then like that's when I would probably reconsider veiling, or at least like try to purchase veils that are a lot more modest. Yeah, so I think that is just something to consider when shopping for veils. Is as beautiful as some of them may be, also just like check the disposition of your heart and make sure that like you're not buying veils to draw attention to yourself, but rather like you're buying it for the right reasons, if that makes sense. But of course, like, this is all like fairly tricky, and like me myself, like I'm still trying to work out veils. Like I've only been veiling for what, like maybe like 2 years, so like I'm super new to this, still trying to like work my way out. Like who knows, maybe in the future like my veils will look totally different, but right now this is kind of where I am. Yeah, also like I'm not like a theologian or anything, so like don't take my words and run with it. Like definitely like explore like other sources, hear from other people, but it's just my personal thoughts on veiling. Also, if people are interested in where I got my veils, I got these two both from Etsy. There's a store on Etsy called Vintage Veils, and they have such beautiful veils. Yeah. And something, yeah, so like like I had mentioned, something I do is I bought like a kind of fancier one for Sunday Mass, and then I bought like a chiller one for daily Mass. Because I kind of just discerned with myself that like this one would just be too flashy for daily Mass. So I kind of wanted one that was like less flashy and everything. But yeah, I got these both from Vintage Veils, and then prior to that I bought a veil for very cheap. I think it was like $10 or something off of like Lily Veils or something like that. But yeah, definitely check out Etsy. Etsy has a lot of different shops that sell veils. But yeah, okay, that's it. So those are all of my reasons for veiling, and I really hope I didn't forget anything. Yeah, I hope I didn't forget anything, and if I do, I'll just create like a part 2. Maybe I'll also interview some of my friends about why they veil. But yeah, so those are all of my reasons why I veil. I'd love to hear why you personally veil in the comments, because I find like every woman kind of has just like their own story, whether it's them growing up going to TLM, the Latin Mass, or them just being touched by a female role model that they have in their life. But yeah, just let me know in the comments why you veil, and see you next time. Bye.